gods, pantheons, old religions, and modern ones. That is what we're going to be talking about today. The reason why I think, like, old mythology, old religions are probably some of the most interesting rabbit holes you can go down when you're getting into history is because it is probably the easiest way to get into the mind of people back then. Like, yeah, no, you don't have the same type of surroundings as somebody who lived in Scandinavia during the Viking raids, okay? You did not live the same type of life as them. Those were different types of people. However, you can get a pretty good idea of what these people were like if we look at the gods that they worshipped, okay? If I'm looking at your religion, and one of the main guys is a guy named Thor, and Thor's hobbies include fighting, more fighting, getting pretty merry, I would say, and then getting with women, and then going to sleep and repeating the cycle all over again, then I can at least understand where, like, the modern, how people thought back then. I can understand that. Same thing with Greeks, okay? Like, I think it's kind of funny how, like, the god of gods in Greek mythology is a guy named Zeus. And Zeus's hobbies pretty much included on him coming in every once in a while to go judge a few gods or mortals, and then having demigod children. Like, bro, he was like a notorious cheater on his wife. Okay, like, I want you to think about this. Over 90% of all of mythology in Greek could have been absolutely just cut out as DLC if you just stopped sleeping with women. Like, it got comedic after a while. Like, bro, how many kids do you have? I'm sorry, I'm rambling a little bit. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. Greek mythology, Norse mythology, the Christian Bible. We got a lot. We got a lot. I don't want to have a long-winded intro, okay? Because I can tell this is going to be a yapping-heavy video, okay? And honestly, I love that I get to do this, okay? And that's only because of the support of you guys. If you want to continue to support the channel, I don't have a Patreon, I don't have anything like that. Please consider a like, comment, and a subscribe. We're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers by April 6th of this year. I think we're going to be able to do it because, again, I have the coolest fan base in the world that, honestly, I feel like I don't deserve, but I just keep on making content for you guys, okay? And that, honestly, I feel blessed to do that. And speaking of blessed, let's get into the gods tier list. Let's go. Zeus. Okay, now we're going straight into Greek because I think that's probably the easiest one to start out with. Okay, Greek mythology, if we're going to go into it, let's start off with Zeus. Zeus probably had one of the probably worst beginnings of any god that I'm going to start out on here. I mean, bro was hid as a child because his dad Cronus kept on eating babies from his sister because he didn't want to get by his kid because he did that to his dad. Oh yeah, Cronus had a dad, it was like the sky god, but then he chopped off his willy, so he couldn't have more kids, so Cronus could be the only child because his dad kept on getting rid of the other ones. And then, you know, there's a lot. There's a lot. So Cronus has a lot of daddy issues. And then he betrayed his mom by not letting out his monster brethren and sisters out of the pit. And then he had a kid with, like, the only breedable-looking sister. And that's where Zeus came from, Poseidon, and Hades. And then all of them, except for Zeus, were eaten. And then Zeus got to grow up as basically, like, forever sparring to get ready to fight his dad Cronus. And then his mom, very much like how Cronus' mom wanted him to betray his dad and then free his brothers and sisters, Zeus was told that by his mom, and then Zeus actually did do it. There's a lot of repetition, okay? That's one thing that I've learned about Greeks. There's a lot of repetition and a lot of fatherly trauma when it comes to Greek mythology, weirdly, okay? You got Zeus over here who's just freed his brothers and sisters. And then his two younger brothers, Poseidon and Hades. Hades gets given basically a shit draw, and he drew the sword stick, honestly. He just got the underworld. Zeus, because he's the leader, got to get the high heavens. And then Poseidon got to get the ocean. And then I'm kind of over here like, that's kind of a lit deal, but why the hell did Hades get done such a bad hand? Like, real talk? Like, bro, Zeus is the youngest brother here, actually, if you actually think about it, because he would have to get born last, so he wasn't eaten. So the point I'm trying to make here Zeus got the best deal out of everybody in Greek mythology. Boom, becomes the god of Olympus. So boom, gets a wife in named Hera, a baddie in Hera. And then proceeds to have some kids with her, and then that's how he got Apollo, and that's how he got Ares. And then there comes the Womanizer saga, where Zeus just proceeded to cheat on Hera an absolute insane amount of times, and I'm not even kidding you. That's where the other 90% of Greek mythology is. Odysseus, Hercules. Like, I want you to think about this, okay? Like, we watch Marvel movies now. Greek mythology was like the original Marvel movie. I want you to think about that. There was a guy named Homer that made the Odyssey, which is one of the most referenced pieces of literature ever created. Brother, there's a person making a stage play for it called Epic, and oh my gosh, the songs are so good. So, that is the religion that we're dealing with. What can I tell about the people that were a part of it? This was a hero-oriented culture. It was, 100%. The stories of Greek heroes, the gods would come in, give them power because they were demigods. You had Hercules fighting the Nemean lion. You had Odysseus killing Cleopatra. And then you had Zeus kind of being there like as a distant dad who here's the thing. Another thing that bothers me. Every single person that Zeus gets with, it's kind of like he disguises as their husband or like disguises as an animal to get it and then leaves and then is like, I actually loved you the entire time. No, Zeus was the god of thunder, the gods, and gaslighting. 100%. I'm sorry. I barely believe you care for your children. Like that's where I'm getting out of all of this. I think Greek mythology is absolutely awesome. But oh my gosh, Zeus, just keep it in your pants and we wouldn't need 90% of it. I think this is a good start. I'm going to put Zeus in awesome. I actually think he's a pretty awesome one in terms of the lore that we're getting from Hades. Okay, I think I want to do 2 per mythology, and I think Hades is probably the second biggest in terms of what he's done in the mythology. Basically, if any Greek story needs a bad guy, they kind of just throw Hades in there to be the surrogate bad guy. And then when you look into it, it's like, well, Hades isn't actually the bad guy. He's just doing his job. He has, like, this whole, like, love triangle. Not love triangle. Actually, is it a love triangle? It kind of is a love triangle, because he tries to get... this is where I'm going to get the names messed up. I think her name was Persephone. And Persephone was, like, the goddess of, like, life and stuff. And then Persephone was supposed to get with Ares, but Ares was kind of, like, half involved in there. And keep in mind, Ares is the son of Zeus, which would make Hades the uncle, but then Hades wanted Persephone, and that's how you got seasons. So yeah, that's another thing I respect about Greek mythology. They have probably some of the most creative ways for, like, explaining away stuff that is a normal occurrence. Like, the Greek understanding of how seasons work, in the mythology aspect of it at least, is that Persephone got to spend half of the year with her mother, and then the other half of the year with Hades in the underworld. And then that half of the year was fall and winter. Why is that actually genius? Like, there's like a whole custody battle going on with this chick named Persephone. Oh yeah, what happened to Ares? Ares was actually having a fling with Aphrodite because love and war was so linked back then that you would just go to war for women. So actually... Again, a pretty interesting idea. Aphrodite and Ares. The reason that they're linked is love and war are 2 sides of the same coin. Honestly, yeah, that's really cool. I mean, he shows up in most myths. Like, I'm sorry, he's just the final boss. In my mind, bro, I feel more bad for him than anything. Imagine if you had to live in the underworld and your whole job was they just give you souls of people that died. Like, dude, Zeus just has to take care of the other gods and occasionally get with women. Our boy Hades has to wait for half a year to get his wife back. Insane. I think he's cool, but I also think he's kind of just struggles from, like, the villain aspect of it. I think of Hades, I'm like, oh, villain. Yeah, villain. I don't say he's, like, straight evil, but, like, I'm sorry, bro. Hades literally means hell in Greek. It does. I'm gonna put you in cool. Jupiter from Roman mythology. This one I'm only doing 1 because I want to roast it really quick. Don't think I didn't notice. Okay, Roman mythology. You just copied Greek mythology bar for bar, and then changed the names into Zeus, and then you changed Zeus to Jupiter because you guys wanted to be special, and you said, oh, look we have astrology, but we kind of have to have another religion, so what's the only religion that's kind of been around us for like, in like the same geographical location? Oh, the Greek mythology? Okay, let's just take Greek mythology, rename everybody. I'm not even kidding you, bro. Jupiter, Venus, Neptune. Neptune is just Poseidon. Yeah. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was so disappointed to find that out, and before somebody says, oh, well, there's some slight differences, yeah, bro, they had to get past the copyright. Of course I'm joking. But the point I'm trying to make here is the differences between Jupiter and Zeus are like, Zeus is old and has white hair. Jupiter has black hair with some gray in it, and he's not as angry. Okay. He just seems like Zeus if Zeus didn't get with 15 women. And I'm sorry, that's most of the interesting stuff going on with Zeus. You took out all of the like, I just had, like, literally early on in the video talking about how the entirety of Greek mythology is like the flaws of a father making the child. Cronus chopped off the willy of his dad because he locked away all his brothers and sisters. And then Cronus betrayed his mom, and then did the same thing with his kids, but ate them because he didn't want to die. And then Zeus offed his dad, and then freed his brothers and sisters, but then locked his oldest brother away, Hades, in the underworld. So, like, there's character development going on there. Jupiter is just younger Zeus. That is it. That's so dumb, dude. Actually, yes, I am gonna put that in lame. Like, that, like, the creativity is so lacking. And here's the thing, but the reason why that is Romans didn't really consider themselves a very religious state. In fact, they were pretty ahead of their time when it became to, like, a religion acceptance. I know that sounds weird. They had a beef with the Christians because the Christians' belief structure did not go well with the Roman power structure because at this time it was more Jewish and then it became Christian after the death of Christ. Their belief structure said that God is above even the Roman Caesar, and then that was part of their religious practices. And then the Romans were super annoyed by this, so they just were like, you know what, bro, we need to start killing these Christians. And then that didn't work, and then we got here. Christianity outlasts the Roman Empire. So, yeah, I guess who was laughing now? I'm sorry, that was a bad joke. But yeah, no, Jupiter sucks. It's so lame, dude. That actually kind of like, damn, really? Really? Well, no, he's not the god of Olympus. He's the god of the sky and lightning. Cool. He shapeshifts into an eagle. Sounds like somebody I know. Wow. Odin from Norse mythology. Okay, now we can talk about Norse mythology. Okay, I'm sorry, bro. Norse mythology is insane. What the heck are we talking about? You're telling me there's a guy named Odin that got rid of his eye for foresight so he could potentially see into the future, and then he saw into the future and saw Ragnarok, and then Ragnarok is essentially two wolves are fighting that kind of make the sun have like a permanent eclipse, but then it's not that, it's actually worse than that. There's also this big serpent named Jormungandr that's going to poison Thor, but Thor's gonna hit Jormungandr so hard that he's gonna go back in time. Yes, there is canonically time travel in Norse mythology. Oh no, it gets crazier, okay? And then after the entirety of Ragnarok takes place, it actually causes another cycle to occur, and then Thor and Odin are going to be born again, and then the cycle's going to keep on repeating and repeating. You hear that and you're like, that's absolutely insane. And it is, okay? But I think the underlying reasoning behind this is that this was a warrior culture that had to cope with the fact that they are most likely going to go to war, watch their brothers or their sisters die in battle, and then they were going to have to go to it again. I think this repetition in Norse mythology is their way of coping with the idea that my death ultimately means nothing and I live for war, and when I die and go to Valhalla, I'm going to go to war again. They essentially gaslit a whole culture of people to war is the only thing worth fighting for. Okay, it reminds me of like I don't know if you guys were around for this. I talked about Blood Meridian, and there's a guy named Judge Holden that talks about the only true God is war, because war is the act of becoming God over another man. The ability of imposing one's will over another person is the practice of godhood. And I'm gonna be real with you. I think about that a lot. That's an absolutely insane quote to be hit with. And I think when we look at Norse mythology, I think that's true to a certain aspect, but I think a lot of that was their way of coping with the idea that we are a warrior culture. People like are wondering, why did Norse mythology die out? And mostly because, imagine you're a Scandinavian Viking and you are like half believing in the Norse gods, because at this point you have spent probably around 100 years invading the English and they worship a different god, and then you want some of that because ultimately, like, yeah, no, the Norse were better warriors. The English had a better society because, yeah, at the time, this was a better way of living than how they were living. It just was. I don't know if that's going to be controversial to my Norse followers out there, but if it is, let me just ask you this. Why did the entirety of Scandinavia convert to Christianity like that? Like, they converted in record numbers. Like, no, don't get me wrong. There was a lot of money that was being passed around. There was a lot of that. But at the same time, bro, we didn't expect Scandinavia to convert that quickly. And there's also a fun theory that I've heard about Norse mythology that I'll get into in a second. But I'm going to put Odin in. I think he's cool. I think Zeus just has that much more. I really do. I think Zeus just has that much more character than Odin does. I'm sorry. A lot of Norse mythology is just repeating and then war. That's essentially what it is. Yeah, I think I don't have to explain it. Thor, the god of thunder. Okay. Also, I love the explanation around thunder is it's just him hitting things with his hammer. That's cool. That is objectively cool. You have his old relationship that he had with Loki. You had his other brother, Balder, that nobody really brings up. Also, this is where I want to get into. There is a theory that the entirety of Norse mythology is actually, well, not the entirety of it. A good portion of Norse mythology is actually a mistranslation from an ancient, like, Christian prophet that went to that side of the world, but then he died in the process. But then the stories got twisted over the next couple hundreds of years, and then you got some aspects of Norse mythology. Now, before you ask me, Ayo, where is Thor? Where would we get Thor from? No. It's his brother, Balder. I'm sorry. If you actually look at the story of Balder, you start squinting a little bit because you're kind of like, huh, super cool dude that everybody liked that was the son of God. Okay. And then he got betrayed by his brother or his friend, Loki, the trickster, and then they killed Balder. Oh, I mean, listen, I understand. It's fairly loose, but I do think it's a fun theory. Do I ultimately believe it? There's a lot that has to occur for that to be true. That's where I'm looking at it. I think it is more likely that the Balder story is inspired by some stuff that was kind of like a mythology game of telephone, and then Balder kind of came from something else. But when we're talking about Thor, I think, is meant to be a stand-in of, like, the average warrior in, like, living in Norse mythology and the culture. A young man that just loves partying, getting with women, and going to war. He was kind of just, like, the status of what you wanted to be as a warrior. Like, I'm sorry, bro. The Norwegian people, not the Norwegian, the Scandinavian people were on a different type of timing back in the day. Y'all were running fades with the entirety of England and winning for a good portion of it. You forced the entirety of England to lock in, and Ireland to lock in to beat you, and you barely considered it an actual conflict. Like, yeah, no, your religion gave you quite a big boost in stats. I think Thor, this might be a controversial take. I don't rank him as high. Like, at the end of the day, he's famous because of the MCU. But in terms of lore behind him, he's kind of like, there's not a lot. Like, at the end, I'm going to put him at the bottom of cool, because I think there's some really cool aspects to him. Like, I'm sorry, Mjolnir, objectively cool. He has a belt that allows him to lift things that are way heavier than he could actually lift. And then that allows him to wield Mjolnir. Oh yeah, that's the actual lore-accurate story for how he can wield Mjolnir. He wears this special belt. So again, yeah, Not really a worthiness thing, is it? The sun god Ra from Egyptian mythology. Okay. Let me tell you something about Egyptian mythology, dog. It is a rabbit hole that I am still attempting to get into. It is a lot. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But the sun god Ra is probably the easiest one to understand. This is the creator god of Egyptian lore. Okay, so that's what we're gonna start off with. I think if I were to judge the people of Egypt, like based off their mythology, I think this was a group of people that thought a lot of order. The amount of gods that they had over, like, some of the smallest things. Like, one of the most famous gods is Anubis, okay? And we'll cover Anubis in a second. But, overall, he doesn't... In any other mythology, this would be taken up by somebody like Hades, who would do a bunch of other things. The sun god Ra is, yes, the god of the sun. He created everything, and then got bored of taking care of humanity. So he kind of got on a big old sip in the sky, and then was dragging the sun. And then every single day he gets like a little bit of reprieve. And then when it's nighttime, he goes into the underworld to bring a sun to the underworld. And then the god from the underworld attacks him every single night, so he has to run a fade with a god every single night and day. And then, when he comes back over, he can finally take a rest again. And I just want to let you know, that was less stressful than his actual job of taking care of humanity. I think that's kind of funny that he was like, bro, these humans, dog. Like, you know what, bro? I'm going to let all the other gods take care of this. I'm just going to go into the underworld and run a fade with the god of the underworld for the rest of ever. Okay, that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, I created everything. You guys got this. You guys got it. I think that's pretty funny. Now, I'm gonna keep it real. I'm not the biggest fan of the designs. I'm not. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. However, I think the lore behind him, I gotta put him up there. I'm gonna put him top of cool. I'm gonna move Odin up. Move Odin up. Yeah, no, I maintain the Hades slander. The coolest thing about Hades is his little love thing that he has with Persephone. Other than that, pretty boring guy. I'm going to keep it real with you. I'll move awesome and then top of cool. I think that's valid. Anubis. Oh, this is what I talk about Anubis. What do you think Anubis is the god of? Guess. The underworld? No. So his whole thing is funeral, basically the god of funerals. I understand there's a bit more to that, but like if you die, he's in charge of the mummification stuff. And then walking you to the underworld, and then judging you whether you go to heaven or the Egyptian equivalent of hell. That is the base. That's pretty much what Anubis is. And this is where I'm gonna get into Egyptian mythology. I think a lot of what these people thought of was order. I think that was a huge thing for these people because, like, when you're looking at Norse mythology, it is a warring thing where there isn't a lot of law, don't do this, unless it pertains to warfare. When we're looking at Egypt, like, bro, no wonder you guys had a very long, like, crazy run as a empire. Not really an empire, like a pretty big kingdom in like the global stage back in the day, when your religion had so many rules of shit that you could and could not do, that kind of kept everybody like in line for the most part. Like, dog, you made a special god, Anubis, that his whole job was to make sure that people were mummified properly, and then he took them into the underworld. Like, dude, that would have, in any other mythology, that would have been taken up by, like, Hades. And, like, the Christian religion, that kind of just is like, yeah, no, the body's like a husk. Like, oh, yeah, bury it, but, like, because it's unsightly. Yeah, no, they're rested. You can't even speak to them. Like, a lot of that stuff is, like, taken out of the lore at that point. Anubis, I mean, I respect it. I do respect that they had a whole thing. I think his design is dope, and I'm going to keep it real here. I was going to put him in meh, but his design is so goated, I'm going to put him in cool. Honestly, his design does carry the lore behind Anubis, and at least I'm missing something, is relatively like, yeah, there's some stuff that'll happen if he goes into the underworld. And he's kind of like morally gray. And I'm over here like, yeah, he's doing his job. You think he gives a shit? Bro, he's a guy with a jackal head. You think he cares where you go? No, he doesn't. I'm gonna put him in cool, though. The God of the Old Testament. Okay, now this is where I gotta have to cover myself here when we're talking about the big three Abrahamic faiths. Okay, you got Judaism, you got Christianity / Catholicism, and then you got Islam. And this might be my controversial take. Buddy, it's the same God, we just have different rules. Like, I want you to think about that. That's essentially what it comes down to. Like, the schism between Judaism and Christianity is just, we believe in Jesus Christ. You guys really don't. Like, at all. Like that's the schism there. The schism between Christianity and Islam is that the Prophet Muhammad believed in, like, Jesus Christ, but not that he was divine, but he was one of the greatest of the prophets. Bro, even the Prophet Muhammad said that. That's why Jesus Christ is still, fairly, revered and protected, because he was a great prophet in the Islamic religion and in the Quran. But we disagree on where does the Prophet Muhammad fit in all this. Okay, that is where the schisms occur. But it's the same God. Like, at the end of the day, bro, the entire beginning of the Christian Bible is just the Old Testament. And then there's the New Testament that occurred after Jesus. That's the Torah, essentially. There's a few stories that are in the Torah that aren't in the Bible, but, those were kind of, almost, this is going to sound bad, almost decanonized, because it kind of changed when Jesus Christ came. And then, I have not read a lot of the Quran, but in terms of, the rules, I mean, you guys just believe in a different rule set, but it's the same guy. You have Yahweh, you have God, and then you have Allah. Essentially, we just disagree on rules. Now, when we're getting into there, listen, there are whole channels dedicated to this, okay? I am going to do a lot of mass generalizations. However, I think a good way of looking through, we're getting into some heavy stuff, when we're going to the Old Testament into the New Testament, when we're looking at God, Yahweh, okay? It's kind of interesting if you look at it through a realm of the Father God talking to his children. Okay, you have the creation story of Genesis. You had everything was created by him. You had mankind that was created after that. You had the rebellion of the angels, which, first off, yeah, somebody wanted me to bring up angels in here. Oh yeah, bro, angels are terrifying. They are, bro. I've said this multiple times. I think I said this in the analog horror tier list I made a long time ago. There needs to be an analog horror talking about how terrifying angels actually are. From the description that they gave, literally every single time somebody talks to an angel, they freak the fuck out. Because they're like, bro, this is not what I thought it was gonna be, okay? Nobody was freaking out in Greek mythology when Zeus came down from the heavens because they were like, oh, it's just a normal dude. Angels show up, everybody's freaking the fuck out, okay? That I think needs to be talked about. But I think the relationship when we're talking about God and his creation is a lot like a father learning to be a father to his children. I understand that might spark a few debates, but if you're looking at, the difference in the Old Testament God to the New Testament God, I think a lot of that is him, realizing how to parent. Honestly. I'm starting to look at it that way, because I'm like, how do you go from turning people into salt and then flooding the world and then being like, okay, I'm not going to do that again. If I'm going to keep it real with you, that sounds like a single dad trying to figure out how to be a dad, and then one day he breaks your toys, and then it's like, yo, I'm sorry. I promise I'm not going to do that again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's what it feels like. Okay, I understand, we're doing a lot of personifying, but then my argument for that, the idea of a personification of the divine, is only given to you because you were created. Oh yeah, mankind was created in the image. What are humans in nature? Creators. We are creating because we were created by something else. That's where I think it comes into in our very nature. What do humans do? We create. That's my personal belief on that. I think that's where it comes down to. Honestly, I think it's kind of underrated. In terms of all the lore that you can step into over, why would he do this? Why would he do this? Why was humanity created? Was he lonely? Did he want companionship? My favorite theory, now this one I don't personally believe, but I think I've covered this. Now I have so many videos I can, push back to other videos. I think in the afterlife tier list I talked about, there's a theory that the entirety of humanity is actually not a dead god, but a god that is still being born. and then when the entirety of humanity dies off, you are nothing but one cell in like the hive mind that is the mind of a god. What does a god want to do? He wants to become man so he could learn how to rule it. And I think there are some beliefs that is the point of humanity when you're getting into he will serve with God. I don't think that's on an individual thing. I think that's in a humanity with the divine. The human aspect of divinity. Like the understanding of suffering to the guy who created the idea of all of that. We're getting into some deep philosophical beliefs, okay? I'm very sorry that we're getting into there. Where am I gonna put... It's him. Like, I'm sorry, bro. It is him. It is. Like, I'm sorry, bro. I gotta do that, okay? And this is Old Testament. That's the Old Testament guy. This dude flooded the world because he was like, you know what, bro? You know what? Yeah, go get on a boat, put your wives and kids on there, grab 2 of each animal. Okay, get out of here. Like, and then we're gonna start over again. Done. Jesus. Okay. Let me explain myself. Because this is now we're getting into the schism between... Like, I did... God from the Old Testament. Now we're going into the New Testament type of stuff, where he's a little bit more mellowed out and is more of like, you know what? I have an idea of how everything's going to go, and that's another thing. I know there's going to be one comment talking about like free will, the argument of free will, when we're talking into like into the Bible and all of there. I think it's much more of a thing of it's an understanding of how things are going to go. It's kind of like this. If I say you're going to die one day, that isn't me predicting the future. That's me predicting something that is destined to happen. You will die one day. Now, I could get more in depth with it, and I could say you're going to start a family one day. And if that turns out to be true, you're going to have hardships. You're going to have good parts of your life. That's not me predicting the future. That's me saying inevitabilities that are going to occur. When you're getting into stuff like Revelations, like the end times, okay, I think like that's the stuff that can be seen, and it's like that's going to be the inevitability of how things are going to end. But you can control a certain point of what you can do with your own free agency and the free will that you were given as a creation. I think that's what you're getting into, and I think that's ultimately a more, like, digestible message than we're getting into the argument of free will and create. Like, there's a lot. Like, the amount of stuff that I've seen online in, like, Brain Rot is insane. I mean, here's the thing, bro. I gotta put him in him, too. I got to. I'm biased. And before somebody says, are you going to do Allah? I already said, it's the same being at its core. All we do is we disagree on a few of the rule sets. Like, brother, like, at the end of the day, this isn't me talking like I've never talked to, like, I'm a Muslim in my day. Like, brother, I train martial arts. I see a lot of you guys. At the end of the day, the disagreements that we have is, like, rule set-based stuff. But we agree on a lot. That's kind of what I've come to, and I'm going to put it in him. Brahma from Hinduism. This is another one I will acknowledge if I don't know a lot. And I do not know a lot about Hinduism. However... all I gotta say is this. There are so many gods in Hinduism, dog. There are so many that I wanted to do too, but I literally couldn't pick another one. So I chose Brahma, because Brahma is the original creator. And then to give you an idea of how weird the lore gets... I don't want to say weird, that's disrespectful. I want to say how crazy the lore gets. He became like a secondary creator because he was a part of the original Trinity. And then the Trinity kind of were like, actually, no, we're going to take over for you, Brahma. You can kind of go into retirement. Kind of similar to like Ra, but a little bit different. Where Ra was so stressed out by humanity that he kind of like made his job into carrying the sun around on a boat. Brahma kind of like had a few kids, and then those kids kind of got like instantly nepo babied in. And the reason I'm using that word is what other word would you use for two gods having a baby, and then that baby gets a seat in godhood? Like, I'm sorry, that is like the definition of divine nepo-babyism. It is. Divine nepotism, that's better. Yeah, I'll keep it real with you. I do not know enough to judge this correctly. However, the Hindu god designs are legitimately some of the coolest that I've ever seen. I'm sorry, this is creative to an absurd degree. I'm going to put this in cool. And yes, there is going to be another lame and a meh. I'm going to move Ra up, though, because I don't want this to be too heavy on cool. And, yeah, Hades will go up if I put another cool in. Quetzalcōātl. Okay, now we're talking about the Aztec mythology. I've said this multiple times, okay? I think one of the biggest things that we've lost as a collective, like, human race is, like, we pretty much lost the entirety of Native American mythology. Like, we have a few ideas, we have a few, like, divinity stories, creation stories. Like, I think one of my favorite ones was there was a Native American tribe that lived by what would be, like, modern-day Yellowstone. And they said that there was a god that wrestled with a dragon, or, like, a fire-breathing creature, and then sealed it in the volcano. But then when it is destined to break out again, and then it'll cause a dark time in that area in the world. And I'm over here thinking to myself, brother, you saw Mount Yellowstone erupt? Like, a lot of people, and I understand I'm going off of Quetzalcōātl, but it's in the same realm of, like, when we're talking about Native American mythology. People will go into Native American mythology and been like, oh, bro, look at all these tree huggers just talking about their dumb mythologies and pantheons. And I'm over here like, there's a Native American story telling you that there is a mountain that has a dragon inside of it, that it's doomed to hatch again. And now you're telling me you're surprised to find out that Mount Yellowstone is actually a volcano, that when it erupts, it's going to cause a crazy event that was going to submerge 25% of the entirety of America into a volcanic winter? Okay, yo, maybe we should be looking at these mythologies from, like, a point of view of, like, yo, what are they warning us about? Like, bro, I think the whole thing with Wendigos, okay, I understand we're going off. I think the whole thing with Wendigos was actually them discovering a prion disease of cannibalism. That's what I think they discovered, but they put it in their own terms. Also, Bigfoot shows up in Native American mythology. I think that's what it was. That's why I think it was like a Gigantopithecus type of creature. That's why I think that. But when we get into Quetzalcōātl, also, probably one of the coolest animalistic god designs I have ever seen in my entire life. It is a rattlesnake with the wings of a blue macaw. If that is not one of the coolest designs I have ever seen in my life, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. Also, this ties back to another video I made. Do you know what Quetzalcōātl will, like, become in his, like, his human forms? A harpy eagle. I knew I was right to be terrified of those things. Harpy eagles are one of the most terrifying looking creatures I think I have ever had the, like, I don't know what to do with that information if that's a real thing. Just a bird the size of a small, not a medium-sized toddler. Not even that. Like Kevin Hart. And then it could just pick up you and then drop you and you die. That's terrifying. Also, the bringer of hurricanes, cyclones. Also, yeah, if I had to imagine a creature that embodied what a hurricane was, yeah, it'd be a rattlesnake with wings. Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense to me now that I think about it. Design alone, I gotta put it up there. I'm putting it up there again. Okay, we only got two more, and now I can go on a riff. Sun Wukong. And before you say, oh, well, this one's not real. Really? This is the one where you draw the line? Okay, the reason that Sun Wukong gets to get put on here is that there is so much lore behind him. I do not care if Journey to the West started out as basically Buddhist and Hinduist fan fiction. It became a legit... Okay, the best example of, like, I think I've talked about, like, biblical fan fiction kind of making its way into the zeitgeist. Like, the best example of a story that was made, like, biblical fan fiction that became like something that people thought of is Dante's Inferno. Yeah, Dante's Inferno was completely made up by a poet and a comedian. The whole story of Dante's Inferno is pointing fun at Catholics. That is the whole story of Dante's Inferno. And the Pope was so angry about it, he labeled Dante a follower of the Dark Lord. How salty do you have to be to do that? And now when we're getting into Sun Wukong, the entirety of Journey to the West, okay, was meant to be almost an Avengers crossover event between Buddha, Hinduism, and other, like, lesser known, like, religious beliefs in China at the time. That is essentially what it comes down to. He is a monkey that was born out of a stone egg that was probably a meteorite, hatches from it, and then goes on to lead these other monkey people, which I think the monkey people were meant to be humans. I think that's what the story was trying to go for. And then has a beef with the other gods, like there was this whole lightning god that he had to get into a fight into, and then kind of had like a good stalemate with them, and then fought the other 72 lightning gods. Yeah, that's a real number, by the way. And then gets into a beef with the Jade Emperor, almost overthrows the Jade Emperor, and then Buddha comes in here and is like, I think you guys already know this, I'm sure most of you guys know. He told Sun Wukong, hey, if you can jump into the palm of my hand and then jump out, you can become the new Jade Emperor. And then he tries to do this, jumps up to the pillars of the universe, takes a leak on it, and then writes Wukong was here, and then jumps back into the palm of the Buddha, and then jumps back out again. And then the Buddha sews him his palm, and then it sews the Wukong writing, and then he like flicks his hand off because he peed on him. And then now Wukong is locked underneath a mountain, and that's the beginning of Journey to the West. There's a lot. That's a whole other video of explaining Journey to the West to you guys. And if you guys want that, yeah, I could do that at some point. But yeah, I'm gonna put it in. I'm gonna put it in meh. The reason I gotta put it in meh is it really was just fan fiction that was made around Buddhism, Hinduism, and then a bunch of other lesser-known religions in China at the time, and this was meant to be their crossover character. However, I will give him this. Creativity, way above Jupiter. 1,000 times what Jupiter was. And Sun Wukong and Journey to the West is the reason why anime does exist. That's another thing that people don't bring up. And, yeah, Journey to the West is reason why Dragon Ball Z exists. Yeah, Son Goku, Sun Wukong. Literally, yeah, direct. Monkey Tail Saiyans. Monkey Tail, Sun Wukong. Yeah, I don't think I have to spell it out to you. Journey to the West, for anime, is what Homer's The Odyssey is to all other Western storytelling. So yeah, I'm gonna put him in meh. You know what? I can't. I'm putting him in awesome. I got to. I'm sorry. I'm putting him in awesome. I tried. I needed somebody to go in meh, so I'm going to move up Jupiter. I wanted to keep him in meh because I needed somebody there. However, I got one more guy that I think I could put in lame. Xenu, the god of Scientology. Oh my gosh, I've been waiting for this. I've covered Scientology a couple times on this channel, and I think Scientology is quite possibly one of the greatest tax write-off scams ever created. Okay? Like, real talk, people say that's Mormonism. No, Mormonism, honestly, is a pretty funny story. A lot of that kind of started because a guy wanted to have multiple wives, so he traveled into Mexico. Oh, yeah, that's why Canelo Alvarez is a redhead in Mexico, because he is a direct descendant of the original Mormons that traveled into Mexico. So, yeah, that's why that's a thing. But yeah, they moved out because they wanted to have multiple wives. So yeah, that's kind of the reason why Mormonism, because they found another prophet. And people will give Mormons that shit. Scientology is just a higher budget, richer version of it. Okay? Where Mormonism has Billy Joel, Scientology has Tom Cruise. Oh my gosh. Like, bro, I think the motivational aspect of it is pretty cool. I think it is. But if you actually get into the lore of Scientology that has been leaked out by people that were actually a Scientologist, it essentially boils down to this alien named Xenu that was going to war with other aliens, and then those aliens are refugees, so they came to Earth, and then they were put inside a volcano in Honolulu, and then when that volcano erupted, all the souls... Also, yeah... In the understanding of Scientology, your soul form and your body form are two completely separate entities where there's nothing that goes there. You're actually an alien that was able to possess a human cell. So you aren't even actually from here. Your soul isn't at the bare minimum. And then when you die and you achieve greatness. Also, yeah, there's some nirvana aspects to it. I think I've already covered, when you die in Scientology and you didn't live a great life, you go to the Saturn, you go to this place in Saturn which essentially kind of tells you whether you're going to go back to Earth and relive again to achieve, yes, nirvana. And then once you achieve nirvana in Scientology, you get your own planet to govern. Yes, the final ending of Scientology is you become a space governor from Warhammer. Oh my gosh, dude. Scientology is insane, dude. That I call it. I will say this. I'm sorry if this is a controversial take. I have no clue who my audience is. Scientology is the most effective tax write-off scheme I have ever heard. You want to hear the quote of the guy who founded Scientology? If you want to make real money, get into religion. That's a real thing that was written down. I'm sorry. I'm putting it in lame because of how absolutely off the wall the mythology is, okay? Jupiter just copied lore from Zeus, but that's more interesting. There is no overarching story in the lore of that. You're an alien that got stuffed into a volcano that possessed a human cell, and then when you die and achieve nirvana, you go to Saturn, and then you get soul teleported into a space governor. Insane. Insane. And that's what Tom Cruise believes. Absolutely wild, dude. And there you go. That is the God tier list. I don't know how well this one's going to do in the algorithm. I was going to keep it real with you. Halfway through, I'm thinking to myself, man, this is going to be a very interesting video to recommend. However, you guys like the history rants. I plan on doing a few more of those in the future. There's a few announcements that I have coming up. I want to do a Vlad Dracula video. I want to do a Doom lore video. I think I've already put that in the community page. We got a lot of stuff coming to the channel. And honestly, your support, it's more than I deserve, man. Like, it's crazy. It really is. Like, I've been feeling down the past, like, week, and honestly, this is the stuff that I enjoy doing. I enjoy talking to you guys, whether it's about history, games, or stuff like that, man. Honestly, yeah, it's a blessing to do what I do. I understand, like, I'm sounding down, but it's because, like, dang, man. I can't believe that I made it this far. And I know you're looking at the subscribers, it's 85,000. I know there's a lot of people, like, bigger, though, but, like, I never thought I would make it here. I'll just be real with you. Thank you for the support that you give this channel. I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers by April 6th, and I think we're going to be able to do it because of the support of you guys, the creative freedom that you guys give me, and honestly, just, you guys gave me the dream job, man. You guys did. I will be thankful for you guys for this. At the end of the day, you guys have, yeah. I'm getting a little sappy. I'm sorry. If you want to continue to support the channel, please consider like, comment, and subscribe again. And stay tuned by hitting the bell icon. We got a lot of other videos coming up. I got a Friday video, and we got some other stuff that's coming out later on. Not so much tier list stuff. We got a ton of other stuff that I plan on making, and your support would mean the most on that, okay? And I will see you all in the next video. Adios, guys.